The era of Trump has just turned political bandwagons upside down, haven't they? Over the past 6 years, we have watched so many Republicans, real Republicans, and real conservatives totally lose their shit when they realize that they had created Trump and that Trump had become president. Now, I don't think there is a single conservative out there, former Republican. I'm not talking about Christian terrorists. I'm talking about honest-to-God Republicans who now are stateless. They don't have a party that they can say, well, this is my home. They'll never be Democrats. And the Republican Party is now a rotting corpse, the bones of which have almost been picked dry by buzzards. And what replaced it, of course, are the Christian terrorists. So in the age of Trump, everything has been turned upside down politically. It really has. And now Republican Representative Liz Cheney, who is soon not to be a representative in Congress, but Liz Cheney, who used to be someone that I would disparage as often as I could because of her policies and her parentage. I thought her father was a warmongering, war criminal, son of a bitch who encouraged George W. Bush to commit war crimes. But Liz Cheney became a hero in certain circles on the left, insofar as it concerned her reaction to the orange vomit. But now, OMFG. On Saturday, she said she would be willing to campaign for Democrats in the upcoming election. And she went on to criticize members of the Republican Party who continue to deny the results of the 2020 election. She was speaking at the Texas Tribune Festival in Austin, Texas Tribune being a newspaper. And she was asked by the MC who was interviewing her if she would be willing to go to work for Democrats, given the horror of what's happening with the Christian terrorists. And she answered with one word, yes. That was it. That was the first time she said she would do that, at least that explicitly. And she was talking about, at the time when she said that, she was talking about the candidate for governor of Arizona and prominent election denier and Trump fellator, used to be a reader on some local TV station, Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake. I don't understand some of these candidates who are women. Carrie Lake is anti-abortion. She's anti-woman's right to privacy. She is a Trump fellator of the highest order. And she won the Republican primary to run for governor of that state. Poor Arizona. Good God. Now, Cheney, as you know, has been a fire and brimstone critic of Donald Trump. And at this forum, the Texas Tribune Festival, she said, quote, partisanship has to have a limit. And she mentioned the governor of Virginia, this Glenn Youngin, who tried to cast himself when he ran for governor and won, that he really was a moderate Republican. Youngin says he will campaign for Carrie Lake. Cheney said about that, she said, quote, he's demonstrated that he's somebody who has not bought into the toxin of Donald Trump, but he campaigns for Carrie Lake, who's an election denier, who is dangerous, end quote, Liz Cheney. And Cheney added, quote, that's the kind of thing we cannot see in our party. We cannot see an accommodation like that. And I think it's very important that we be clear about that, end quote, Liz Cheney. Well, you know, the thing I want to say to Liz Cheney, of course, if I had a chance to talk with her, and I would be respectful, I would. But what I'd like to say to her is, when you say that's the kind of thing you can't see in your party, Liz, I mean, your dad was a co-conspirator with George W. Bush to commit the worst kind of war crime that can be committed, according to the American position in the trials of the German High Command at Nuremberg after World War II. We were the ones who said it. Robert Jackson, I've said this a million times, the Supreme Court Justice, who I believe was the chief prosecutor in some of the trials for the United States. And it was he who said that these Nazis had committed the worst crime leaders of a nation could commit, and that is the unprovoked invasion and slaughter of innocents into another country, which is exactly what George W. Bush and Dick Cheney did. So when Liz Cheney says we cannot see an accommodation like that in the Republican Party, I just want to scream, what are you talking about? Your party since Reagan has been pushing in this direction, and you were part of it. When Trump was president, Liz Cheney voted with him, 98, 99% of the time? Did she not know? Did she have her moment on the so-called road to Damascus when all of a sudden she realized, oh my God, I've been supporting a psychopath? Well, maybe she did. Maybe she did. And then the moderator at the Texas Tribune Festival asked her specifically whether she would campaign for Katie Hobbs, who is Kari Lake's opponent, Democratic opponent. And Cheney said, quote, this is a little bit weaselly, she said, quote, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that Kari Lake is not elected, end quote. You notice there was no absolute yes there. Simple question. Are you going to campaign for Kari Lake's opponent? She wouldn't answer. Okay. So, on Friday, Glenn Youngkin was at the Texas Tribune Festival, the governor of Virginia, who's turning out to be a full-blown Christian terrorist. And he said, quote, I am comfortable supporting Republican candidates, and we don't agree on everything. I've said that I firmly believe that Joe Biden was elected president, end quote, Glenn Youngkin. Yeah, but Glenn, you're a lying, weaselly son of a bitch. You speak with forked tongue. And everybody knows you do, you slimy son of a bitch. Glenn Youngkin went after white suburban women when he was running for governor, and he got them with his lies about parents' influence and control over what was happening in the public schools. Parents don't control it. The school boards control it. And Glenn Youngkin knew that. But, you know, like most politicians, most Christian terrorists, Republican politicians, and a few Democrats, he just lies through his fucking teeth. That's all. And on Saturday at that conference, Liz Cheney declined to offer any details about her plans now that she's been defeated by this Trump pig. And she wouldn't comment on whether or not she will run for president. That would be interesting. But I think, I don't think she has an ice cube's chance in hell, but who knows? And she also didn't disclose much about what's going to happen tomorrow. The House committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol has its final meeting tomorrow starting at 1 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you have a lot of popcorn for that. But she didn't say, or she did say that she doesn't think the committee's hearings will conclude this week. The chairman of that committee, Benny Thompson, said last week that unless something else develops, it will be the last hearing tomorrow. But Thompson added, but that's not cast in stone because things happen, end quote. But then Cheney added at the Texas Tribune conference, quote, we don't anticipate that it will be the last hearing, end quote. I don't see how it could, especially given all the shit that has developed since the announcement was made that this would be the last hearing, especially with this psycho bitch that's married to Uncle Clarence Thomas. Ginny Thomas, that Nazi bitch of Buchenwald, who now has agreed she will hike up her skirts and step through the muck in order to testify before the January 6th committee. That's the latest, right? I wonder when that will happen. But it's going to turn out that Ginny Thomas probably was involved to some degree in the planning of the insurrection. I mean, Ginny Thomas is a full-blown Christian terrorist. I mean, seriously. And as sick as any one of these QAnon fuckers or what are these militia types, the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers. Ginny Thomas is fucked up for real, deeply, irrevocably fucked up. I can only imagine the shit that she whispers to her brain-dead husband at night, Uncle Clarence. God, what a couple. Oh, man. Woo! Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.